So friends, the operating system has two flavors. One flavor is for home purpose, that is PC, which is also known as client, and the other flavor is for servers. So PC, our client operating system, is like Windows 7, Windows 10, and our focus will be on server level operating system, which goes from 2008, 2000 and 2003, 2008, and then 2008 R2, and then we have 2012, 2012 R2, 2016, and 2019. So we would be doing the practicals on this server operating system. So our entire focus will be on how server operating system works, what all are the rules of inside this operating systems. We will see them in depth. Now friends, this operating system of Microsoft. So Microsoft is very famous in creating operating systems. And the one who handles this part is known as the desktop engineer in the company. The one who handles the PC level operating system becomes a desktop engineer. And the one who handles the server operating system is known as system administrator. Now, going ahead, to understand operating system, we must understand a very important concept which is related to operating system, and that is known as work group. So in case of work group, we will take an example to understand the work group environment. So just 1 second.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, now friends, going ahead. In this work group environment, for example, we have a company and this company is having 100 PCs like this. So this company is a small company and it is having just 100 systems. And we have a user like A is sitting here, B is sitting here, and C is sitting here. So when this company started, so initially they bought 100 PC, they had 100 employees, and when this IT support person, so there is an IT support person in this company, when this IT support person got this 100 PC, what he did, he assigned one PC to each of this employee. But before assigning that, he created the user in the local database of each PC. So for example, this company just bought 100 PCs, they have 100 employees, and all the laptops goes to the IT support person. Now IT support person is assigning one system to each of this user, but before assigning, he should create the user. So he will create the user in the local database of each PC. So each PC is having its own local database. Now the user is created in this local database. So this IT support person will log in into this PC and he will run the command that is known as lusr mgr.msc local user manager. Now after running this command, a page will open up and the IT support person will go ahead and create the user and set the password, share it with this A user, and then now A will be able to log in PC1. So friends, in this case, I have operating systems like Windows 7 or Windows 10 operating systems, and all my operating systems are in workgroup. And by default, all the operating systems which we buy is in workgroup. It is like this. So if I just go ahead and type this PC, and if I do properties, I will see that my operating system is by default in workgroup. Now we are going to understand in depth the difference between a workgroup and domain, because being a system admin, it is very important to understand this. So if my operating system is in workgroup or if my company is in workgroup, then what are the disadvantages of workgroup and when should I go to the domain environment? Now in this case, if I just go ahead and type in Windows R lusrmgr.msc local user manager, then I will see the use local user and groups. I just need to double click here and I will create the user of A. For example, I will just go ahead, new user, and username like A, and the password like welcome@123. And I will say must user must change the password at next log on. This tick I will keep, and I will share the username and the password with this user. And when this user log in the PC1, he will be asked to change the password at the first logon so that he can set his own password. This is the welcome@123 is the dummy password. Now once he log in, he will set his own password. Now friends, this is how in my entire company, if I have 100 employees and 100 PC, I will just go ahead, being an IT support person, being an administrator of that company, I will just go ahead and create the user in each and every PC. So the way I created the username and set the password for A, the way I will create for in PC2 for B, and the same way I will create it for C. Now, whenever A logs in, the PC refers the local database. Whenever B logs in, the PC refer its own local database, and whenever C logs in, the PC refer its own local database. This local database is a database. It is stored somewhere. So it is by default stored at C drive, Windows, System 32, config, SAM. So this local database is stored at this place, and it is by default. It is the default path. We cannot change this path. So if I go here on my C drive, this PC, C drive, Windows, System 32, then config, and then it is SAM. So this is the database. The database which you see using the command lusrmgr.msc, you are actually creating the user in the SAM database. So whatever user you create here using this local user manager, that user or group is being created in the SAM database. So this is the command local user manager.msc is the command to access the SAM database. And the SAM database is the local database. Now going ahead. So friends, if I want A to log in into the PC of B, what I need to do is I need to create the user of B here, of A here. So I need to log in into PC2 and I need to create the user of A here in the local database of PC2. Then only A will able to log in PC2. The same way I need to create the user A here in PC3 if I want A to log in into PC3. So in case of Workgroup, what you have is there is no centralized database. The first disadvantage of Workgroup is there is no centralized database. Each PC is having its own local database. Each PC refers its own local database. And the name of the local database is SAM database. This SAM database is stored as this location. And this SAM database can be accessed using the command local user manager.msc. Now, if I want a user to log in into all my 100 PC, then I need to take a tail and go to 100 PC and create the user in all the 100 PCs. Now, friends, let us go to the next thing. But before that, is it clear? Is this topic clear? If you have any doubt, if you have any queries, you can put in the chat box. Okay, that's good. Now friends, going ahead, let us see the next big disadvantage of workgroup. Because workgroup, there are a lot of disadvantages. That's why we are moving to the domain environment. So the next big disadvantage of workgroup is, let us see. Now in case of workgroup, uh, so Samir has asked, can we change the local database path? So the local database path cannot be changed. It is by default fixed. So we cannot change the local database path. Now friends, let us go ahead and let us come to the next point. Now the next big disadvantage of workgroup is, let us see. So for example, if you have the same company where you have 100 PC, and in this company, you being an IT support person, you get a requirement that you need to block the USB in all the PC. So the blocking the USB in all the PC, I need to go individually to PC1, PC2, and PC3, and it is a big task. So going to each and every PC and doing the task manually, and it is time consuming and a lot of efforts are required. So this IT support person, he got the request to block the USB. He goes to each and every PC, and in work group, you have something which is known as local policy. There is something which is known as local policy. Each PC is having a local policy, and using that local policy, you have the option to set wallpaper, to set screensaver, to block USB. Every option is there. So the command to access the local policy is gpedit.msc. gpedit.msc is the command to access local policy. Even you can check it is on your system. So gpedit.msc is the command to access the local policy. So in each PC there is a local policy. gpedit.msc is the command to access that. And when I open up the local policy, I can just go. I must know where should I go to, computer configuration or user configuration. So we will deep dive in this in a lot. So what is user configuration? What is computer configuration? Actually, so if I just go here in the removable, okay, the voice was lost for some time. Okay. Oh, now I will repeat this. I just got a message. Your connection has been restored. I think I just lost the connection for some time. Now I'm back. So we were talking about local policy. Now in this case, in the case of local policy, if I want to block the USB, what I need to do is I just need to run this command gpedit.msc, and I will come on this page, on the page of local policy, and I can come in computers, I can come in admin, I can come in systems, and I can come in removable storage access. And then I can double click and I will come here, for example, all removable storage class, deny all access. And if I say enable, then using this policy, I can block the USB for all of my PC. So that's good. So, but that will affect only my PC, single PC. So if I just go and block the USB, this will affect only one PC. That's why it is known as local policy. It will affect only one system. The same way I need to go to post PC to use gpedit.msc and then just go ahead and create a local policy and block the USB. The same way I need to block the USB in PC3. And the same thing will go on for my 100 systems, 100 PC. Okay. So what is USB? Is USB is pen drive. Like for example, why we block USB in the company? So Mohsin has asked this. Like in most of the companies, they don't want people to connect pen drive in the system, right? Because what company people will bring ransomware, trojans, and lot of viruses inside the company. So that's why most of the companies block USB. That means if you connect the USB in your system, in your company system, it will not get detected because it is blocked by your company's administrator. And this is how it is blocked. So I hope this is clear. So in case of Workgroup, you will just use the gpedit.msc, go to local policy and block the USB. The same way you can set wallpapers. You can set a screensaver. So if you want to set wallpaper using a policy, you just need to know where you must go, and all these things you will be doing the practicals. There is a complete lecture on policies, approximate 5 hours lecture, where you will understand a lot of things about policies. But as of now, I will just show you that if you go to admin template and desktop, this path is very easy. It is like by practice we come to know where we need to go. Now, if I just come here and if I just click on desktop and if I say desktop wallpaper, and I can set the desktop wallpaper here. This is the policy for setting up the desktop wallpaper. The same way, there are a lot of policies here through which you can have a very good control. Now, coming back. So friends, this policy is a local policy, and this local policy, as the name says that it's a local policy, this will only affect your local system. Now, where this policy is stored, the policy is stored at C Windows system32 config. C drive Windows system32 config. Oh, this is not the place. 1 second. System32 group policy. So C drive Windows system32 group policy. This is the place where your policies are stored. So C drive Windows system32 group policy is the place where your all policies are stored. So the policies look like this. This is machine, this is user, this policies are there. But how to access these policies? And that is the command is gpedit.msc. So whatever changes you make here, that changes are actually stored in the backend like this. So this is the place to store the policy, and this is the command to access the policy. Now friends, let us go ahead. What is the benefit of this policy? It's a fixed location. So this location is also fixed. We cannot change this location. So the location for where my database is stored, that is C drive Windows system32 config SAM, and C drive Windows system32 group policies. This is the local database, the SAM database. It is stored EC drive Windows system32 config SAM. We cannot change this. And this is the path for the local policy, C drive Windows system32 group policy. This is also fixed. It cannot be changed. It is the place to store the group policy. Now, sorry, local policy. Now, how to access this local policy? The command is gpedit.msc. And how to access the SAM database? The command is lusr mgr.msc, local user manager. So to access the SAM database, we need the command local user manager.msc. To access the local policies, we need the command gpedit.msc. Now, going ahead, the benefit of this local policy is that being a desktop engineer, we can just go ahead and we get a graphical view where we can set all the policies. But the most important disadvantage of this is that it is not centralized. That means the management is individual. You need to go to each PC and manage it individually. That means for everything, if you set the USB block here, you need to go to the next PC, do the blocking, to the third PC, do the blocking. There is no centralized place where you just go and say USB block and the USB will be blocked in all the PCs. So it is not like that in case of Workgroup. So friends, I hope this is very clear to everyone. So in case of Workgroup, you have seen there are two top disadvantages. Each PC has its own local database. Each PC has its own local policy. Okay, so local database, local policies, there is nothing centralized. Management becomes tough. I need to go ahead on each and every PC and do the changes. Now, if I just go ahead, I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, now let us go ahead and let us understand the benefit of creating a domain environment. Now, in case of domain environment, what we need is the first thing that we need is a server. So we will go to the domain environment. I want to convert from workgroup to domain. Let us see what all things are required. So I have the same company where I have 100 PC and my IT support is highly frustrated with the individual management. Going to each and every PC and doing the changes is highly frustrated with this task. So now he has decided that I will take the approval and convert my workgroup environment in my company to the domain environment. Now to convert from workgroup to domain, what all things are required? The first thing is we need a server. So a server operating system. But before that, we need a good hardware. Now, for example, we can take depending upon the requirement. We will take, for example, 4 core and we can take a 32 GB RAM machine. Now, on this hardware, we will install a operating system like 2016. But just by installing the operating system, my server will not be up and working, because the next most important thing in the case of server is after installing the server operating system, you need to provide a role to the server. And there are multiple type of roles like Active Directory, DNS, DSCP, WDS, WSUS, file services. We will see a lot of them. Now, the most important rule. There are two rules which are very important. One is Active Directory and one is DNS. Now, when I want to create, because there is a reason to install the rule, every rule has some functionality. Because I want to create a domain environment, I will just go ahead and install the Active Directory Service rule, which is known as ADDS, Active Directory Domain Service. Now, when I install the Active Directory rule, it is a two-step process. That is, in step 1, it will install the Active Directory service. In step 1, it will install the Active Directory service. And remember one thing, friends, it is very important that whenever a service is installed, the ports related to that service will open up on server. So this is very important to understand. Whenever you install a service, whether it is DSCP, whether it is DNS, whether it is Active Directory Domain Service, whether it is File Service, whenever you install a service, whenever a service is installed on the server, whenever a service is installed on the server, the ports related to that service will open up on server. So Active Directory has some ports, port numbers that we will see. DNS has its own port number. DSCP will have its own port number. File service will have its own port number. So when I install the Active Directory service, in the backend, the port related to the Active Directory service will open up on my server, and my server will start listening on those ports. We will see that because being a system administrator, it is required that we must know what all ports open up and how to troubleshoot the port level or the service level issues in a server. Now the next is step 2. So it is done in a 2-step process. One step, the Active Directory service is installed, and the next step you will see a promote button. Promote this server to a domain controller. That you will see, there is a click you will see, promote this server to a domain controller. That means you need to make this a domain controller. What is a domain controller? Who is a domain controller? The server which has Active Directory service installed in it is known as domain controller. The server which has the Active Directory service installed in it is known as domain controller. Now, domain controller has multiple types, like one is DC domain controller, one is ADC, additional domain controller, one is RODC, read-only domain controller. We will see the type of domain controllers one by one in upcoming lectures. Now in step 2, what happens? In step 2, it will ask you for the domain name, and that is known as, you need to provide the root domain name, and that root domain name I will provide as attari.com. You can, at the time of creation, because from tomorrow we will start the lab. How the lab will go ahead, we will discuss from tomorrow, and then we will start the practicals also. Now, the root domain name we need to give, and that is attari.com. So going ahead, that means it creates a domain attari.com, and then in this step 2 only, it will ask you about the database, that is the centralized database. That is the most important benefit of creating a domain. The domain environment gives you a centralized database. A centralized database like this, that is known as the AD database. AD database, Active Directory database, centralized database, which is also known as centralized database, AD database, centralized database. And this database technical word is known as ntds.dit, and it is stored here. See, Windows ntds folder is there, and then there is ntds.dit. This is the technical word. The file name is, the database name is ntds.dit. The way you have SAM database there, that is local database. The way here centralized database is created, and that database is known as ntds.dit, and it is stored in Windows ntds folder, and in that you have ntds.dit. Remember, it's a default path. At the time of installation in the step 2, it will ask you, do you want to store your centralized database, your most critical database in C drive? In production, we change it. We don't keep it on C drive. So you have the right to change the path. You can change the path to whatever drive you want. You can change it from C drive to D drive or E drive, whatever drive you have, you can change it. But by default, it is stored in C Windows NTDS folder. Now, in this case, this ntds.dit database is very critical database. All the users of your company, whatever users you have in your company, that users are created in the NTDS database. That is, like if you have user A, user B, user C, all the users are created in the NTDS database. So I will create the user, for example, A, B, and C. And the command to access the NTDS database, this centralized database, this Active Directory database. Anyone knows the command? Okay. So the command to access the centralized database is dsa.msc. So dsa.msc is the command to access the centralized database. So when we will create the domain controller in the upcoming labs, you will use this command to access the centralized database. And you will run this command dsa.msc on your domain controller, and then you will create all the users of your company which are there like ABC, not on individual local database. There is no need for you to create on individual local database. The individual local database will be empty. It will be there in the PC, but that will be empty. Nothing is required to create here. Everything will be created here in the centralized database. And that centralized database is the ntds.dit database. And Savant Sachin Bhai has asked what is NTDS. So NT data structure, like it is a structure anti-directory services. So it's a new technology, something. No, anti-directory services. Now let us go ahead and let us see the next thing. So friends, in this case, I hope this is clear to you till here. So one of my friend has asked, it is ntds.dit. It is ntds.dit, NT directory service, and the dit stands for directory information tree. Okay. So it is not ntds.dit, friend. It is ntds.dit. So who has sent the message? That is, you can send a private message also. So now let us go ahead. So I just got a private message and I just replied on that. Now let us go ahead and let us see the next thing. The next thing is, at the time of creating this step 2 only, and in this step 2, it will ask you to create a group policy. And the group policy is stored here. By default, the group policy is stored at C Windows sysvol. So this is the place it is by default stored. Now, being a system administrator, you can go ahead and change the path of this group policy. This group policy is for centralized management. This is your centralized database, and this group policy is used for centralized management. Now, how to access this group policy? In your domain controller, you need to go ahead and access using gpmc.msc. So gpmc.msc is the command to access the group policy. The group policy is by default stored in C Windows sysvol. Going ahead. Now, once your domain controller is created, and in this step 2, everything is done, your domain controller is created. Initially, the database will be empty. Then you will log in into the PC. Sorry, you will log in into the domain controller. You will run the command dsa.msc. You will create all the users in your, all the employees in your company here. And then if you want USB should be blocked, then you can just go ahead, create all the policies like USB block, wallpaper, screensaver, whatever you want. You will create the policies here in the centralized management place, which is known as group policy. Now, this is your group policy. Now, friends, what you need to do is you have your PC1, your PC2, your PC3. Your domain controller is created. You have a domain also now. So now, how to move the PC to your domain? You need to go to the PC, which is right now in Workgroup. Your PC, for example, this is my system. And if I want to move this system to the domain controller is created. The domain is ready. I will go to my system and I will say, hey, you are in Workgroup. There is no need for you to be in Workgroup anymore. We have the domain ready. And to manage the domain, we have the domain controller also. And he's having a centralized database. And to manage everyone, we have centralized management group policy. So Active Directory database for centralized database. For centralized management, we have group policy. So that's two big things that come with your domain environment. Now, when I click on change settings, I will click on change. And then I can give a computer name like PC1 or 2. And then I will click on domain and I will give it like attari.com. And I will say okay. When I say okay, my PC will try to reach attari.com. And if it is reachable, obviously in your company, everything is connected. And once it is reachable, you will get a username and the password message. That is, the admin credentials are required to join a PC to the domain. And then your PC can join to the domain environment. And now your PC comes under the boundary of attari.com. That is all. You will the same thing. You will go to all your PC and you will say join attari.com. So your work from Workgroup, you will move to attari.com. The same way you will go to PC2, join attari.com, and they are a part of this logical boundary. You cannot see this logical boundary. It can only be seen in the diagram. This is a logical boundary, and that is attari.com. Once your PC is joined to the domain, it becomes a part of your domain boundary. And now your PCs and the users, both of them can be managed by the domain controller. Now, once you have created a user is there. Now, if A tries to log in into the PC, which is joined to attari.com, remember, by default, your PC1 will not refer its own local database. Your PC is joined to Attari.com domain. It will send the username and the password. When anyone logs in, it will send the username and the password to the domain controller, and the domain controller will check the username and the password in the centralized database. If the username and the password is correct, A is allowed to log in. If the username and the password is incorrect, A is not allowed to log in. So that is known as authentication. That's the job of the main job of the domain controller. Now, going ahead, this A, if he logs into PC2, so what will happen if A logs in into PC2 and A puts the username and the password, the PC2 sends the username and the password to the domain controller, and the domain controller will check its centralized database. If the username and the password is correct, he is allowed to log in. That means for me, there is no need to create the user of A in each local database, because once your PC is a part of your domain environment, your PC does not refer the local database. The local database is there. It is not like this, it is gone, it is deleted, it is there. but it does not refer the local database by default. So whenever anyone logs in, the PC refers the PC sends the username and the password to the domain controller, and the domain controller will check it in the centralized database. If it is correct, he is allowed to log in. That's a very big benefit. If I have 10,000 PC, you can imagine my user can log in into any PC. And if I have an office in Mumbai and other office in Pune, and they are a part of my domain, for example, this is my Pune PC. This PC I joined to the domain of my company. Now my A user, which is in Mumbai, he can just go to the Pune office and log in into any PC of in the Pune because they're a part of same domain. Now going ahead, so Active Directory centralized database gives a very strong benefit in production environment. The next is the way we have seen in case of workgroup. Like for example, I want to block USB, or I want to set a wallpaper, or I want to set a screensaver. In case of workgroup, I need to go to each and every PC. But when I have the domain environment, when I have the domain controller, I will just go to the domain controller and run the command that is gpmc.msc, and a console will open up in front of me. The console looks something like this only. But the most important thing is this will affect your only one PC, and the console of your gpmc.msc, that is the group policy, the name is group policy itself. So it will affect your all the PCs in your company. So if you create a USB block here, this will affect all the PCs in your company, and the USB will get blocked. The same way you can set a wallpaper, you can set a screensaver here. So there is no need for you to go to your 10,000 PCs and do all this task from a central place. From just your domain controller, you can manage all the PC which is a part of your domain. So it makes the management very easy. Because without domain, you cannot work for big systems, big setup. It is impossible. So that's why domain is the heart of each and every company, and the every company has to manage this. Every company has to go for Windows, and they have to create setup like this. Then only their management becomes easy. Now going ahead, so friends, we have seen that the domain environments gives you centralized database, it gives you centralized management, and it helps you to make the administration easy. The next is, let us go ahead. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So we have Amir, Ahmed, Azam, Bhavik, Chetan, Yvonne, Ishan, Jaiprakash, Zubair, Komal, Mayur, Mohsin, Osama, Pradnya, Prince, Sagar, Shamim, Samir, Santoshni, Sarvesh, Satish, Sachin, Sri Azagar, Suraj, Suvarna, and Suni. Now Swarna has asked, how domain connected to all PC? So how the domain is connected to all PC, it is done by the network team. In the network team, in the back end, we have a switch. They will connect all your PCs and your domain controller also, and then network connectivity is required. The way in your house, you have a router, right? You have a router which has a switch also inside. So network connectivity is required. Without networking, things will not work, and that is managed by normally a network engineer, and he connects and gives everything ready to you. So Sachin has asked that I have explained the disadvantage of workgroup over domain. Any advantages, benefit of workgroup over domain? There is no advantages of workgroup over domain. Good question. And Bhavik has asked, what if we need to allow one PC to use USB in DC environment? So that is possible, Bhavik, and we have the possibilities to have OUs. You can even say that I just want the USB block only for the HR department, because HR people are my favorite. Being a system admin, When I came to this company and I asked them for a good hike, they said, no, what is your existing package? I said, this much, we can give you only 30%. So as a system admin, my job is to get their job done by blocking the USB. So just an thing. So we can block or we can allow, we can apply the policies as per the department, like HR, sales, finance, marketing, IT. You have complete control. Even if you want that, you just want to apply a policy only to a single PC, that is also possible. So everything you will see, we will deep dive a lot in group policy, which is very interesting. Actually, the entire course of MCSE is very interesting because servers are the heart. And once you know server, your doors open to the world of IT. A person who has no knowledge of servers, forget about going to cloud. Forget about if a person wants to go to VMware. So you can just forget that part because cloud base is very, very critical. So we will see a lot and in group policy, which is very interesting. And in the entire server course, as I said, because it's all graphical and it's all like there are a lot of things in servers you will see. So in the group policy topic, we will see how to block or how to allow for a single PC also. Now, next, let us go to the next point. The next is, let us go to the PPTs. So you will get access to the LMS by today and you will be added. I hope most of you are already there in the WhatsApp group. And if you're not there, then you need to discuss with the support team. And those people who are there in the WhatsApp group today, they will get access to the LMS, the learning management system of Attari Classes. Now, how to enroll? You will get a link in the WhatsApp group. You need to watch that video and enroll yourself. The PDF which I'm showing you, normally I just try to open up the same PDF which is there in the LMS. So once you revise, you must see the same thing. Now, what is Workgroup? Workgroup is a collection of PC with individual management. By default, all PC are in Workgroup. There is no centralized database for authentication in Workgroup, no centralized database. Each PC is having its own local database. Now, the username and the password are created locally on each PC. Using the command local user manager is the command to create users in local database. Local database name is SAM database stored at this location. See Windows System 32 config SAM. Above the default path, it cannot be changed. Local policy on each PC is accessed using command gpedit.msc. Local policy stored at below location. See Windows System 32 group policy. Management of PC is individual, hence it is difficult to manage. Workgroup is a physical bond. Physical meaning it cannot expand. It cannot, if you have an office in Mumbai and Pune, then it is two work group. You cannot connect two work groups. Mumbai office is one work group, Pune office is other work group. Now, in domain, when you have a domain boundary, everything comes under your boundary because domain is a logical boundary, the way we have seen. Now, domain is a logical boundary managed by the domain controller. What is a domain controller? Domain controller is a server which has the Active Directory service installed in it. And the user computer printer OU is known as object. Remember, for the Active Directory, for this database says, hey, you created a user ABC. I said, yes, I created them. So the database says, this user is known as object for me. So whatever you create in the Active Directory database, in future you will see groups, OUs, computers, a lot of things are there. In the practicals, I will show you. All these things are known as objects. General term is known as object. Now, user computer printer OU is known as object in Active Directory. Domain mode is not there by default. Even the server, even the server operating system you get by default in workgroup. It is by default in workgroup. Then you install the Active Directory rule and all these things happen. Or then if you want to join this, if you have a different server, in future I will show you different type of servers. Like for example, you want to create a DSCP server. Then that server also will be in, by default it will be in workgroup. Then you need to join that to the domain, then install the DSCP role, and then it will work as a DSCP server. So in short, by default, whatever operating system you get, whether it is Windows 10, Windows 7 or Windows 2016 server operating system, every operating system is by default in workgroup. Now let us go ahead. And so domain mode is not there by default. You need to install the Active Directory service and then create a domain controller and then create a domain also. Now we install the Active Directory service on the server and then create a domain like attari.com, after which this server becomes a domain controller and manages everyone who is inside the domain. Now to put inside, you need to go to the PC and join your PC to the domain. Now in domain, there is a centralized database for authentication. And the username and the password is stored in that database, and that database is known as the ntds.git database, and it is stored in below location. See Windows ntds.git. The dsa.msc is the command to access this database, and this database path can be changed. So also a folder is created for storing group policies. See Windows sysvol is the place where you can create your group policies created here. See Windows sysvol. Now, group policy is accessed using command gpmc.msc. Above the default path, it can be changed, but should be on local drive of the server, like D drive, A drive. It cannot be remote. You cannot put on it on Google Drive. Getting the point, it has to be the local drive. Now, management of all PCs centralized done from the domain controller. Hence, managing everyone inside your domain, whether it is in Mumbai or Pune or US or UK, if it is a part of your domain, then managing everyone is very, very, very simple and very easy if you have a domain controller in your company. Now, friends, any doubt in this? Just put in the chat if you have any queries. Suvarna has asked, one PC in Mumbai and another PC is in Pune. How it is connected to the same server? That connectivity is done by the network team. I will give you a rough idea. So you might be wondering how it is connected. So there is a network team which has switches and routers, and they connect your Mumbai Pune office. And then you have a PC, for example, this is your Mumbai office. In Mumbai, you have an office in BKC, very famous Bandra Kurla complex. And in Pune, you might have your office in Hinjwadi. I used to go to Hinjwadi in Pune. Now, in this case, you have your switches here. These are all your switches and routers are there. These are all network devices. This is the job of the network team, and you have your domain controller and your PC. So this is how your PC1, this is your domain controller, and this is your PC2, for example, Pune PC. So this is how it is connected, and your PC joined to the domain. And this is known as WAN link. WAN, in the term of networking, it is known as WAN. There is LAN, there is WAN. These are all networking terms. In short, if you want to connect your Mumbai Pune office, you need to call a Tata. Like the way you want internet at your home, you call the ISP, right? The broadband, the local broadband. He comes and connect internet at your home. He brings a router, a network device, and then put the internet link on the router, and then you are connected to your router, right? And then this is how you are connected to the Attari Classes training because you have a router at your home. So the same way, if you have two offices in Mumbai and Pune, you need to buy a link, a connectivity, for example, 100 Mbps connectivity from a bigger ISP like Tata, Airtel, or Reliance, and they will connect your office, and then your PC2 will join your domain, and this entire thing will be known as your domain. Getting the point? So now this is your domain, and this can expand. If you connect your Mumbai office to UK office, then even your UK office PC can be joined to your domain controller and it can be part of your domain. So the domain is a logical boundary. The more connectivity you have, the more it will go ahead and expand. Now, Mohsin says, okay, everything will be going to do on PC, right? From the next class, from tomorrow, we will start sharing the systems with you, and slowly, We will explain how to do the live practicals along with the trainer. That is from tomorrow we will start. Now, is it possible, one query I got, and is it possible to backup NTDS? Yes, we will see. There is a complete lecture in disaster recovery, how to backup and restore. Is it possible through VPN? So if your office is having VPN, then if you are working from home, you can connect to your office through VPN also. Now let us go ahead. Let us come back to net servers. Okay. So VPN, LAN, WAN, everything is managed by the network engineers. Right now our focus is on servers. Now coming back. Now friends, let us go ahead and let us see the next thing. The next thing is, being a system administrator, you must have a very good idea about the services. So you should have a very good idea about the services. And that is, for example, to understand this, we will take a very simple example. You are sitting on your PC. And let us take an example of my laptop only, ncpa.cpl. And this is details. And in this case, my laptop is having an IP address like 192.168.0.153. First of all, I hope you have an idea of what is an IP address. An IP address is required for communication. So in the world of networking, whatever communication we do in the world of internet, IP address is required. Getting the point? IP address is required for communication. You should have an IP, and the person with whom you are connecting, he should have an IP. Like phone, I should have a number, and if I want to talk with you, you should have a number. Then only I can connect with you. Getting the point? So the same way in the world of networking, I must have an IP address. And if for example, if I want to go to Google or Amazon, if I want to type Amazon, if I want to go to the Amazon website, Amazon should have an IP address. But there are two types of IP address. One is an IP address which is known as private IP address, and one IP address which is known as, if it is internet, one, if this is Google, yeah, I can say Amazon, then one IP address is known as public IP address. So Amazon will have the public IP address and you will have a private IP address. That is private IP address which is used inside your home and office, which you give is known as private IP. And when the servers are on internet you need a public IP address. Now private IP address has a range. It is not like that in your home you can use any IP address. Private IP address has a range. There is a range for private IP address. And that is like any IP starting from 190 to 168. This is the range of private IP. Any IP starting from 170 to 16, 170 to 17, up to 170 to 31. This is the private IP range. And any IP starting from 10, this is the private IP range. So these are the ranges. In your office, you can use any one of them for giving IP address. Remember, if you have 10,000 PCs, for communication, you will need IP address. Correct? Now, what to do? IP address, how to give? It is very simple. For internal communication in your office, you need a private IP address. Public IP address is required for those people, like those servers which are on internet, like Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Amazon. They need public IP address. We people need a private IP address. And the private IP address is not like this. I can select any IP address. I need to select this range 192.168, 172.16 and 10. This is the range. Out of this, I need to select the private IP address. Getting the point? So I will explain this once again. IP address is required for communication. You might have seen, right? Everyone knows about IP address. If you do ncpa.cpl on your laptop, ncpa.cpl, you will see this, a LAN connection, right? So I'm connected right now on Wi-Fi. So if I double click and if I click on details, I will see something known as IP address. So what is this IP address? What is this 192.168 only? Why it is not something else? Getting the point? So why? Because your laptop, your PC needs an IP address. So IP address is bifurcated into two broad categories. One is known as private IP, which you can use internally. The private IP address has a range. Okay, the range is 192.168.0.x.x, 172.16, 172.31.10. These ranges are the private IP address range, which you can use in Office, and the most famous you will see 192.168. It is commonly used. Now, on your server, the server which is on internet, they need a public IP address. So those people who want to publish their servers on internet like Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Amazon, which is on internet, you are able to access them. They have an IP which is known as public IP address. Getting the point? So anything which is not private IP is a public IP address. So public IP address is not given by us. It is managed by an authority. That authority manages the public IP address. Now, private IP address, you can give it without anyone's approval. You can give the private IP address. But public IP address, you need to buy from an authority which manages the public IP, that is known as the IANA, AIANA. This authority manages the public IP address. So friends, is this bifurcation clear, that IP address is required for communication? An IP address is divided into two categories. One is for your internal communication in your home and office. If you have 10,000 PC, then you need an IP address to give to all of them, right? So you cannot go to IANA and buy a public IP because it is not required. You are using in your home and office. Then you can use the IP address from this range, which is known as the private IP address, which is used for internal communication. But if you want to make your server public, then you need a public IP address like Amazon, Yahoo, Facebook. They want to make their server public, then only they need a public IP address. We just need at your home and office, we need a private IP address. The same way we have given an IP address, which is, that's what you see, this IP address, that is 192.168.0.163. So this is the IP address which is given to my machine, to my system. Now going ahead, so my PC is having an IP address which is 192.168.0 dot, where is it? 0.153. This is the IP address of my laptop. And my system is having a DNS. So our focus will be on DNS. So this is my IP address, and this is the address of my DNS server. Now the DNS server address is 8.8.8.8, and this is my IP address. Now friends, in the case of networking, in the world of networking, if you open up the Chrome browser and if you type in www.amazon.com and if you type in t-shirt, then this t-shirt word, this is internet, and this is your Amazon server. And Amazon server is having an IP like 4.4.8.8. It is having a public IP address. You are having a private IP because it is on internet. Now your your t-shirt word should go to Amazon, then only Amazon will show you t-shirt. Getting the point? Your t-shirt word should hit Amazon server, then only Amazon will show you t-shirt. The way you go to Google and you type news, that news word goes to the Google server, and then only the Google shows you news. The same way, your t-shirt word should go to the Amazon server, and then only it will show you the t-shirt. Now in this case, how the packet is created in the backend. So we are trying to understand how the packet is created, and then here in this entire example, it is little bit interesting. So you will understand some lot of things about services. You will understand things which are related to packet structure, how packet is created. You will understand how to check, troubleshoot these services, and some lot of other things which are related to servers. And some little things which are related to networking. And being a system administrator, it is not like that you can keep the networking apart. It is at least little bit is required. But if you have a good knowledge, that's good. But at least the way the thing which I am sharing it right now with you, this is required. Now let us go ahead. So in the backend, a packet will be created. So in the world of networking, it is known as packet. Like it is like an envelope. Your envelope, what it has from to. So the way you have an envelope, like if you want to send a letter to your friend, what you will do, you will take a letter, put the letter inside the envelope, and then put the headers like from and to, and then send a letter via the postal system. Then it will be received at the receiving end, and the person will read the from and the to, and if he is the to, then he will open up the letter, and then he will, whatever is required, he will reply you back in the, if something is required, or if he might send you a letter back, depending upon what is the requirement on your letter. But in this case, if I want to send a letter, I need to put the headers inside the on this envelope. I need to put the from and to, and then inside this envelope I have the actual letter. The same way, if I want to send the t-shirt word, if I want to send the t-shirt word to the Amazon, then in the backend a packet will be created, and in the world of networking there are multiple headers, and that headers is, for example, this is my data, that is the t-shirt. Then that headers are the source IP address, that is from, the destination IP address, that is to, and the source port, that is the from, and the destination port, that is the to. So these headers are created, are added, and then only my data word will go, sorry, my t-shirt word will go to the Amazon. Now going ahead, in this case, what is the source IP? The source IP is the sender IP. This is the sender, and this is the destination. So this is the sender. I can say this is the source, this is the sender, and that is the destination. This one is the destination. So what is the source IP in this case? 192.168.0.153 is the source. Then what is the destination? Do you think this packet will be created, my t-shirt word will go? So what do you think? If I just open up my Chrome browser in my laptop, and if I type amazon.com, and if I type t-shirts, then what do you think? In the backend, this packet is created, and the headers are put. The source IP is my IP, and the destination IP is the IP of whom? Amazon.com, right? So will this packet will be created? Imagine that you're sending an envelope to your friend. It is like the same thing. You're sending an envelope, you have a letter, you have written a very lovely letter, and that is your years apart, friends have not met, and you have written a very good letter. Now you took an envelope and you put the from and to, that is your address and your friend's address, and you send a letter via the postal system. The same way, you have open up the Chrome browser, you have typed in www.amazon.com, a website where you want to go, and the word is t-shirt, you want to see the t-shirts. Now, if this t-shirt word will not hit the Amazon server, you will not see the t-shirt. So in the backend, when you go to the website and type the t-shirt, in the backend your PC creates a packet. Getting the point? We are understanding what happens in the backend. In the backend, a packet is created. In the word of networking, it is known as packet. What is the packet? I will show you live. We will capture the packet live, and I will show you this is the packet. So in the backend, a packet is created, and your data word in the packet, this is your envelope. Consider this as your envelope. This is your from, and this is your to. In your real life, you have only one from and to. Here you will see two from and to. This is from, this is to, this is from, and this is to. So there are two from and two to's here. Now going ahead, your data consists of your t-shirt word, and your source IP, that is from, that is source, is your IP address. Now what will be the IP address of the destination? Amazon is having an IP address of public IP, that is 4.4.8.8, because it is on internet. What do you think the IP address will be here? So friends, what do you think the IP address will be here? Okay, so someone has said 4.4.8.8, that is the IP address of the destination. This is the source, this is the destination, and here the public IP address of Amazon will be there. Correct? That is 4.4.8.8. But friends, that is destination, from and to. First, source will be your, destination will be the IP address of your Amazon server. But have you put the IP address of Amazon here? The answer is no. You have not put the IP address of Amazon. Okay. So what happens that your PC, because in this the packet needs a destination IP, and you have put a name in the URL, you have put a name. So your PC sends a query to the DNS server. There is a DNS server, and this DNS server, how this DNS server is created? So your PC will send a query to the DNS server, and this DNS server has a name to IP table. There is a name and there is an IP address, and there you have the name of the website like www.amazon.com, and this is the IP address of Amazon 4.4.8.8. The same way it has a name to IP table like Flipkart. This is the IP. Yahoo, this is the IP. So all the websites and their IP addresses are maintained by the DNS table, DNS server. So now your PC must know who is the DNS server, and how it knows, who feeds the PC that who is the DNS server, that is you as a system administrator, and that we will discuss. Who tells the PC about who is the DNS server, that we will discuss. But as of now, imagine that your PC knows about the DNS server. Right now, my PC knows who is the DNS server. So the PC says, hey, I know who is the DNS server. Should I ask the DNS server about the IP address of Amazon.com? Because the DNS server, the job is maintaining a table. The DNS server has the name and the IP address. The DNS server is meant for that. People will query the DNS server, and the DNS server will give the IP address. The PCs will query the DNS, and the PC will ask, hey, DNS server, give me the IP address of Amazon.com, and the DNS server will give back the IP address of Amazon.com. So friends, first of all, Are you getting a little bit understanding? Because I'm going to repeat this multiple times. It is very important topic because I know everyone is not in networking, but we will repeat this multiple times because this core concepts are very important. How a packet is created, what happens when you just imagine the way I'm taking you. Okay, take it very simple, take it in a very simple way. You open up the Chrome browser, you type in www.amazon.com. You don't even know what is happening. That's why I'm sure, but that's what we are understanding what happens in the back end. You open up the amazon.com and here you type t-shirts. So I don't want to buy anything, and this t-shirt word went to Amazon server, then only it has shown me the t-shirts, right? So what happened in the back end? We are discussing about the back end because being a system administrator, we need to understand this. In the back end, a packet is created, and in that packet, the data is your t-shirt. The packet has some headers, and the headers are the source IP. The source IP is your IP. The destination IP is the IP of Amazon. Source is you, destination is Amazon. Okay, source is you, destination is your Amazon, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Flipkart, where you want to go. Now the destination IP address is the IP address which is required here, but you have put a name, right? You have not given the IP address of Amazon, you have given a name. Now there should be someone who must know the IP address of Amazon. Getting the point? And who is that? It is the DNS server. It is the job of the DNS server. The DNS server is meant for that. Now, your PC knows who is the DNS server. The PC knows who, the IP address of the DNS server. The PC will say, hey, I cannot create this packet. No, I will park this packet. I will send a query to the DNS server. And then I will ask the DNS server, hey, DNS server, give me IP of Amazon. And the DNS server will give the IP address of Amazon like 4.4.8.8. Now I will put this in this packet, and then the further the packet creation will start. Okay. Now at least it is clear till here. Okay. Now going ahead, we will discuss how this DNS server is created. Now to create this DNS server, so what is done is, for example, if I want to create this DNS server, what I will do, because you're going to create the DNS server also, you are going to create the Active Directory also, you are going to create a lot of things. So to create this DNS server, what we can do is we will take an operating system like 2016. We will install the DNS role, DNS service, DNS role or DNS service, and then a DNS table will be created that is known as name to IP table. There is a name here and there is an IP here. Now the name is our website is www.amazon.com. The IP is 4.4.8.8. Then yahoo.com. Then for example 8.8.2.2, and a lot of websites, the DNS has all the website name and the IP address. Now how the DNS come to know about the name and the IP, you will understand this. I will show you live how it comes to know. This is a question which will take in further, because there is a complete lab for that, and there you will understand how the DNS server comes to know that this is the IP address of Amazon, this is the IP address of Yahoo. Okay. Now, as of now, you will consider that the DNS knows about the name and the IP. Now, remember, whenever we take a Windows Server 2016 and when we install the DNS service, something I had written in the back in the previous board. Anyone remembers that when we install a service in a server, what happens in the backend? Anyone remembers what happens in the backend? Perfect. So Yvonne has given the right answer, that is the port open. And for DNS, whenever you install the DNS service, correct, port related to that service always open, right, Ishan? So remember, every service has a fixed port. When you install the DNS service, port 53 will automatically open on your server, and your server will listen to queries on that port. So the DNS server, this DNS server is having an IP address 8.8.8.8. This is the IP address of this DNS server. This is the IP, and it is listening on port number 53. So IP address is 8.8.8 and port number is 53. Now, my PC is not able to send this packet. This packet is parked. So we asked the PC, hey, I just open up the Chrome browser and I type in www.amazon.com and I have typed t-shirt. Why I'm not able to see the t-shirt till now? So my PC will say, what happened in the backend? I started creating a packet. And when I created a packet in the data, I put the t-shirt. Like the envelope, I put the letter. But the from and to's are missing. I said, what is the problem? PC says, I have the source IP. The source is myself. But I do not have the destination IP address. Because you have given a name in the browser. I cannot put the name here. Then we ask the PC, what you need? The PC says, I need the IP address of Amazon.com. Without that, I cannot go ahead. But I said, I don't know the IP address. Then who will help in this? The PC says, hey, I know who is the DNS server. I know the IP address of DNS server. Let me query the DNS server and get the IP address of Amazon from DNS server. Now we will see how the PC sends a query packet to the DNS server. Okay, so how that packet is created. This packet is parked. Now the PC sends a DNS query packet. Now in this DNS query packet, the data is, I want IP of Amazon.com. And then you have the same headers like the source IP, the destination IP, the source port, and the destination port. We will see them one by one. Now the source IP is the IP address of whom? What do you think? What is the IP address of the P of what will be in the source? What do you think? Perfect. The IP address of your system, of your PC. That is 192.168.0.153. Now, what will be the destination IP address? What do you think? What will be the destination IP address? Remember, this query packet will go to the DNS server. Perfect. So the destination IP address will be of Amazon server. What do you think? DNS server. Perfect. So because the packet is meant for DNS. So the DNS query packet, the destination IP will be the DNS 8.8.8. Now, what is source port? Source, always source meaning you. Source meaning you. Okay. Source port, remember, source port is any random port number. We don't even care. Any random number is taken by your PC for each and every packet which is created. Random number it takes. We don't even care for the source port. The destination port is important. What is the destination port here? What do you think? Perfect. So the destination port will be port number 53. So in this packet means that when this packet goes to your DNS server, the DNS server will understand, okay, destination IP, this packet is for me. Because when a letter comes at your home, you check the to, right? I cannot open up the letter which is meant for my neighbor. I will check the to. So the same way, when this packet goes to the DNS server, the DNS server says, oh, wait, I will check the destination IP. Hey, it is for me. And I will check the destination port. Oh, the destination port. That means you want to go to the DNS service. You want to go to the DNS service. And then it will read the data I want IP of Amazon.com. So once this packet reaches the DNS server, the DNS server replies back with the IP address of Amazon, and that is Amazon IP address is, for example, 4.4.8.8. Now my PC gets the IP address of Amazon. Getting the point? I hope this is clear. Okay, that's good. Now, going ahead, my PC, any command to raise the DNS query, we will see, and we will see the commands also. That is ns lookup is the command to raise the DNS query from self. So the same which is happening by the PC automatically, we can also raise the DNS query manually. Now friends, let us go ahead, and my PC is very happy and it says, hey, I got the IP address of Amazon.com. I will put this packet which is Spark. I will put the IP address here, and that is 4.4.8.8 is the IP address of Amazon which I get. Now source port, remember, source port is any random port number. We don't even care what that port number is. Now this packet is meant, because t-shirt is there, this packet should go to Amazon. I got the IP of Amazon, and now my packet will go to the Amazon. The t-shirt word will hit the Amazon, and the Amazon will show me the t-shirt, but I don't know what is the destination port. Now this destination port, what it will be, for that we need to understand how the destination server is created, because destination port is, it depends on the destination server. So friends, in the world of Windows, if I want to create a web server, if I want to create a website like Amazon, Yahoo, Facebook, Flipkart, Paytm, and if I want to create this website like this, then I need a server. Now, this server, I need to go ahead and install a role in the server. If I take a server like 2016, then I need to install a role which is known as web server IIS. And once I install the IIS service, port 80 will open, which is known as STTP. Port 80 will open up by default automatically on my server, and my server will listen on this port number. So this is my IP address, this is my port number. And you might have seen HTTPS also, that we will discuss. There is a complete lecture on HTTPS certificate services. As of now, my focus is on making you understand that what happens when we install a service, and how a packet is created, how the packet hits the server, hits the proper IP address, destination IP, destination port number, and how the server understand the packets and then reply accordingly. Now going ahead, in this case, what do you think if I type here HTTP? HTTP is there, HTTP www.amazon.com. So in this case, once you type HTTP, automatically your destination port is taken 80. If you type HTTPS, the destination port is 443. That is when you have certificate also. So what is certificate? You will see, or you will create all these things live. There is a complete lecture on certificate services. Now friends, going ahead, I hope this is clear. I will repeat this for you once again. How the web server is created. Now, for example, the Amazon took a Windows 2016 server, just for example, and installed the IIS role. And then the port 80 has opened up. Now, when you go to the browser and when you type http :/www.amazon.com, then in the backend, what happens? a packet is created, and in that packet the destination port is 80 because you have type HTTP. Getting the point? And now this packet will go to your web server. The web server will say, hey, the destination IP is my IP. The destination port is port 80. That means you, and what is there in the data? T-shirt. Okay, I will show you the t-shirts. Okay, so getting the point? Now I will repeat this entire thing once again from the very basics. Imagine, just keep your mind relaxed. Imagine you open up the Chrome browser and you type in http www.amazon.com. Now, what happens in the backend? In the backend, your PC creates a packet. The packet in the data, it consists a t-shirt. A packet is like an envelope. Envelope has the letter and from and to. The same way the packet has the data and the headers. Now, the t-shirt word goes in the data. Source IP is the IP address of your PC. Destination IP, your PC says, hey, I don't know the destination IP address of Amazon. I don't know the IP. This is the first time you're accessing. I don't know the IP address of Amazon. So we said, okay, what to do? So we need to park this packet. So this packet is parked. Now your PC will says, no issues. I know who is the DNS server. I will send a DNS query packet to the DNS server. Your PC in the backend creates a packet. All these things are done very fast. Data. In the data, I want IP of Amazon.com. Source IP is your IP. Destination IP is the IP of DNS because now you want to send a query to the DNS. Source port, always remember it's any random port number. Destination port is 53. Why? Because how the DNS server is created. DNS server, for example, you take a 2016 operating system, you install the DNS service. So DNS service is fixed. It will be port 53. It is international. It is fixed. Okay. So for DNS, whenever you install the DNS service, port 53 will open up on your server and your server will listen for port 53. It is fixed. It is international. For DNS, it is 53. For HTTP, it is 80. For HTTPS, it is 443. All the services are all services have fixed port numbers. Now going ahead, your PC sends a query to the DNS server. Your DNS server says, okay, that this packet will come to the DNS server. The DNS server will read the destination IP. It is for him, will read the destination port 53, and then it will read I want IP of Amazon. It will reply back with the IP of Amazon. Your PC gets the IP. Your PC now puts this IP in the park packet in the destination IP. Now these two headers are done. Now the next headers are source port. Source port is any random port number taken by your PC. We don't even care for that. Destination port is the port number of service where you want to go. And because you have typed in HTTP, it will put 80. Now this 80 port, this packet will go to your server and port 80 should be open. And how port 80 is open on the server? For example, this website has taken a 2016 operating system and installed the IIS role. So by default, port 80 open up on the server and this become a website. And then this becomes a web server. And you have given the IP, this is the public IP. So this packet will go to your Amazon server and the Amazon will read the destination IP and the destination port number, and then it will come to know, okay, this is for me, and it will reply back to the t-shirts. Getting the point? Now let us go ahead. In future, you can convert, because HTTP, there is some issue with HTTP, some meaning lot of issues, security issues. So we convert our website from HTTP to HTTPS. How to convert, we will see. HTTPS, when you convert, your server listens on port 443. Now when anyone types like HTTPS like this, HTTPS www.amazon.com, now in this case it will not be 80, it will be 443. Getting the point? you need to do something on your server, and then you will enable for HTTPS. We need to add certificates, and then you need to, what are certificates you will see, and then port 40443 will open up on your server, and then when you type https amazon.com, in this packet instead of port 80 it will be 443. Now friends, I will show you live these packets. I have a very powerful tool to show you and that is Wireshark. So a very powerful and a very famous tool is known as Wiresharks. So just one second. In this Wireshark tool, we can do a lot of things. It shows you the live packet. It captures the live packet and shows you each and everything. So it shows you everything, each and everything in the live packet. So here I can see LAN or Wi-Fi. So I can see this, my network connection. I can see some up and downs in the Wi-Fi. That means some traffic is going in the Wi-Fi, and I'm connected on Wi-Fi only. So I will select this adapter. Now I can see all the packets which are going in the packet. Now friends, just one thing. The first thing is I will show you the DNS query packet. For example, if I go to flipkart.com, just for example, and if I type in uh, this is flipkart.com. So in this case, if I just went to flipkart.com, so what happened in the back end? Let us see. If I want to see the Flipkart packet, the first thing is I will show you how the query is generated. For that, we will do ns lookup. ns lookup. So what happened? My PC has first sent the packet to the DNS server. So instead of Amazon, for example, I took Flipkart. It is one and the same for all the websites. Everything, wherever you go, the traffic flow is same. Now, if I type here ns lookup and if I type in flipkart.com, then flipkart.com, so this flipkart.com will give me the IP address. Sorry, this DNS server will give me the IP address of Flipkart. Now, Ivan has said that how the DNS server comes to know about name to IP. So there is a complete story on this, and I will show you live how the DNS server comes to know who feeds the DNS server. Getting the point? How the DNS server comes to know the IP of Flipkart, Amazon, Yahoo? How is it? That is a complete story, and you will see live how it is done. Now let us go ahead, and now imagine that the DNS server knows about the Flipkart, Yahoo, Facebook IP addresses, and you are sending using NS lookup, you are sending a query to the DNS server. And this is the, for example, in this Wireshark, if I want to search DNS, and I will just clear everything, continue DNS. Okay. Now just see Flipkart. Can you see this? Live packet is being captured. This is a live packet where if you see that source IP, this is a DNS query, that this is a query packet which has been sent from my PC. From my PC, this query packet is sent. This is the source IP, this is the destination IP, and you can see here that this is the source, the headers, the destination IP, the source port is any random port number, the destination port is 53, and this packet how is go from my PC to the DNS server. Getting the point? Which is the port 53 open, and the query is I want the IP address of flipkart.com. Is it very clear? And in the reply I get from the DNS server, I get the IP address of Flipkart. So friend, is this clear how the DNS query packet which I showed you in the diagram, right now I am showing you live in action. Nothing much can be done from from this. It is a live packet which we have captured. So this Wireshark is actually capturing what is happening in the backend. Now, going ahead. So this PC, when I go to Flipkart, this PC sends the DNS query in the backend, and this is how the DNS query packet is generated. And by doing NS lookup, I can directly talk with the DNS server. By doing NS lookup, I'm talking with the DNS server. That means we are generating query packets. We are asking what is the IP of Amazon, what is the IP of Flipkart. Everything can be asked from here. Okay. Now let us go ahead and let us see the next thing. I will go to the website of now I will say TNDCP contains Flipkart. We'll clean out this. Now friends, going ahead, if I just go to the Amazon website, sorry, Flipkart website once again, like from the Amazon, Flipkart, anything will work. Okay, let me first start the capture. The capture has been started. That's good. Now the capture was started, and whatever I did is been captured here. So you can see that I went to the Flipkart website, and in the backend I started the capture. So this is my capture. The logs which went to the Flipkart has been captured here. So I just want to show you that how the packet goes to the Flipkart or Amazon website, how it goes. It is the same way which we have discussed. Source IP is my IP, destination IP is the IP of Flipkart. Source port is any random port number, destination port number is the port number 443 because we have typed in HTTPS. Getting the point? It is an HTTPS, right? And this is the IP of Flipkart, 163.53.78.110, and you can see here 163.58.78.110. Getting the point? Source IP is my IP, destination IP is the IP of Flipkart. Source port is any random port number, destination port is 443. Why? Because we have typed in HTTPS. Is it very clear, friends? So whatever we have discussed in this diagram, I have shown you live in the packet tracer how the packets are created and how the packet goes and how the port numbers are added. The destination, the source IP, the destination, the source port, and the destination ports are added in your packet. Now you might be wondering why we are understanding this. Because being a system administrator, you must know about the services. Now, for example, someone tells you that my DNS server is not working, it is not responding. What you will do? In the world of IT, you will first do a ping. For example, I am facing a problem with my DNS server. It is not responding. So I will see who is my DNS server. That is 8.8.8.8. So what I will do is the first thing is I will do ping. Ping is a command which is used to check the connectivity, whether I am able to reach the DNS server or not. So you can see after doing ping, if I get 0% loss, that means, and if I get the reply from 8.8.8, that means I am reachable. Getting the point? How to troubleshoot an issue that you're not able to get the response from the DNS server. The first thing is you will try to ping. Ping meaning you will get the reachability. But remember, in the word of system admin, just by pinging it is not enough. Because if the service is down, server is up. And if the service is down, then also the DNS service will not respond. Getting the point? If you send any query, and if the server is up, but if the inside the service is down, then only this will not respond. And I will show you how to down a service also from the next lectures, which is going to come. And I will show you how to down a service and see. So once you down the service, the port 53 will go away. Getting the point? The port 53 which is open, which when it is the DNS service is up, when it is listening on port 53, when you down the service, port 53 will go away from that server. It will stop listening on 53. That means. Now, the first thing is you will do ping. If ping is working, then you will do telnet to check the service. telnet space IP space port number. Getting the point? Using this, you can check the port number of your server. Remember, being a system administrator, just if the server is up, things will not work. You need to check the service in your server, and to check the service, you must use the telnet command. Getting the point? If you're checking it from outside the server, from any PC, you can just go ahead, use the telnet command. If you have access to the server, then I will show you how to check the service from inside the server. Getting the point? That is, from when the server will be created, I will show you how to check the service after taking access of that server. But from outside, you can just do telnet, and if it goes like this, then that means the service is on. Getting the point? So friends, let us go ahead. I hope you are understanding what is going on. Right? I have a positive thought. So friends, what we have done so far, whatever I have shown you here in the diagram, I've explained you that how the packet is created, and using NS lookup I have generated dummy queries also to show you how the query packet is created. And when I go to Flipkart, I've shown you in the Wireshark, I did some filter, that is TCP contains Flipkart, to see all the Flipkart related traffic, and I've shown you how the Flipkart packet, or how the packet goes to the website like Amazon, Yahoo, Facebook, whatever it is. If you do HTTPS Amazon, then the destination IP will be of Amazon. HTTPS meaning destination port will be 443 only. Source IP will be your source port, will be any random port number for each and every packet. It is different. Destination port is your HTTPS, and destination IP will be the IP of Amazon, Yahoo, Facebook, whatever it is. But if you are facing a problem with a server, for example, you are facing a problem with the DNS server, just for example, then how you will troubleshoot it? The first command in troubleshooting is ping. First thing is we must check the reachability. If the server is reachable, that's good. The next thing is we must check the service inside the server. Because it is a DNS server, I will not check port 80 or 443 here. Okay, I will use it once again. I will not check for port 80 or 443 here. I will check 53 because it is a DNS server. So I will check whether port 53 is working or not. So if end-to-end ping is working and telnet is not working, Sachin said, he said telnet is not working, then is it mean the port is down? So if the telnet is not working, then the service is down. Correct. So if the telnet is not working, then there is a problem with the service. That means the server is up, but the service is down. The port is down. Now, in this case, telnet space IP and port number, that means port 53 you are able to telnet, that means the DNS service is working. Now tell me one thing, for Flipkart, what should I check? Should I check port 53, flipkart.com? If I check port 53, okay, 4443. Oh, that's working. Getting the point? It goes inside, that means it is working. But if Flipkart 443 is working, if I check 53, will it respond? Let us see. Flipkart says I am not a DNS server, I am just a web server. Getting the point? So it is not responding. You will see connecting message like this. So it is not responding on port 53. Why? Because Flipkart is not a DNS server, it is a web server. It responds on 443. It does not respond on port 53. If I try to check it like this, so could not open connection to the host. Okay, and it makes sense. It is a web server. The same way, Active Directory is a service, right? Active Directory is a service. You know, this entire thing we understood, what we have understood, and why? Because Active Directory is also a service, and once you install the Active Directory service, the ports which are related to Active Directory like port 88, port 389, LDAP, Kerberos, which are required for proper authentication, this port open up on this server. Getting the point? The same way DNS is a service which open port 53. The same way when you install the IS service to create a web server, it will open port 83 by default. Then you add certificate, it will open up port 443. The same way when you install the Active Directory service on your server, port numbers, multiple port like LDAP, Kerberos, they will open up on your server. Getting the point? And that port numbers are like this. Kerberos, port 88. These are for authentication, proper authentication. These ports are required for the username and the password to go. It goes in the encrypted form. It goes to the domain controller, and the domain controller does the checking and all these things. So when you enter the username and the password in the backend, the PC creates a packet, and in that packet, the destination port is all these things. Getting the point? So when the user logs in, your PC finds the domain controller and the packet is created, and in that packet the destination port is this port numbers. So remember, once you install the Active Directory service, port 88, port 464, port 389, and all these ports open up, and these ports are required for your Active Directory to work, like for authentication to work. Getting the point? And these ports are required for some other task also. You will understand what is global catalog, you will understand what is replication when you will create DC and ADC. There is a complete lecture on global catalog. And Kerberos and LDAP, this is required for authentication, proper authentication. Whenever the user enters the username in the backend, the PC creates a packet. Source IP is this IP, destination IP is the IP of your domain controller, source port is any random port number, destination port number is either port 88 or 460 389 depending upon the service. It goes, it finds the domain controller and send the packets to your domain controller in the encrypted form, and your domain controller checks the packet, and then if the username and the password is correct, your user is authenticated. Okay, so in short, in the case of troubleshooting of Active Directory, you must check these services. Now in the upcoming lectures, I will create the domain controller, I will install the Active Directory service, and I will show you these services live inside the domain controller. Getting the point? So friends, we have also seen about DNS. DNS keeps a database of name to IP. DNS use port 53. There is a forward lookup zone. Uska meaning hota hai, the meaning is name to IP. And the name to IP combination is known as a record. You will understand what is a record. So this record is known as a record. So we are at the very ending of the lecture now, and we are going to end. Just stay tuned for some time more. This record is known as a record. The name to IP combination is known as a record. The name to IP combination is known as a record. And to access DNS Manager, we use the command dns mgmt.msc. The way dsa.msc, the way gpmc.msc to access group policy, the way dns mgmt.msc to access the DNS Manager in your server. Now, I hope you had a good understanding of this entire flow, and we will deep dive in DNS a lot. So that's it for today.
So my dear friends, at the end of this session, I would like to inform you that Attari Classes has multiple course offerings. We have the course for AWS Cloud Solution Architect. We have the course for Azure Cloud Administration. And one of the leading companies in the world for virtualization is VMware. We provide training on VMware vSphere. And if you are looking for any server training on Windows, we have a Microsoft server course, Windows server course. And for networking, we have a CCNA course. So if you are looking for any of these courses, you can get in touch with our support decks on this number 9987088551. If you are calling outside India, you can add +91. Do remember that every session, every lecture, the first lecture of any new batch is a free demo lecture. So don't miss and try to attend a free live demo session at Attari Classes. Thank you. Bye bye.